Okay, the candidates have drawn lots as to who will speak first, and Dr. Wilkerson will speak first, and then Mr. Boggs. They'll have 2 minutes for each for an opening statement, and then we get to the really good part of this meeting, your questions. I hope you signed in your name on the little slips out there to be able to ask questions, because we will draw from that bucket first. If we use all those up and have more time, then I will go to the audience and look for people to raise their hands. But those who signed in, if you signed in and somebody else has already asked your question or you've changed your mind, you can just say pass, no problem. But this is a citizens forum, and so the questions will come from the citizens. And then each candidate will have a 2-minute closing statement, and then we will move on to the next series of candidates. So with that, Dr. Wilkerson, would you like to begin with your opening statement?
Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you to the Eagle Forum for inviting us tonight. I appreciate this. I am Dr. Wally Wilkerson. I am a graduate of Texas A&M with a BS degree in biology and a graduate from the University of Texas Medical School, Southwestern in Dallas in 1955. I entered the U.S. Navy in 1956 and served 2 years. During that time, participated in the last atomic weapons test in the Southwest Pacific, and I observed at least 6 atomic explosions. I'm proud and honored that I've been county chairman since 1964, but I don't want you to concentrate on that. I want you to think about what we've accomplished since 1964. And just think about it. In 1979, we created our first Republican Women's Club, and we now have 7, 1 in every area of the county, so that we have nearly 800 or 900 Republican women involved in Republican women activities. And we have an award-winning Young Republicans Club, and we're very proud of our high school Republican Club. We have 7, and we're going to continue to organize as many high school Republican clubs as we can. We've worked on resources for our candidates, and since 2003, we've had a computerized data system in which we have the results of all the last 3 elections and names and addresses of all those who voted in a Republican primary. And we have a Facebook page, we have Twitter, and we have YouTube. And we're very proud of our record. And I want to say to you this, that since 1994, there's been no Democrat candidate in the county who has won an election for a county level office, a precinct level office, or a district office.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Boggs?
My name's Terrence Boggs. I have a double degree in education from the University of Missouri. I have a degree from DeVry University in technology, and I studied my master's in East Asian languages and cultures at KU. In my last few years, well, let me rephrase. I have spent the last few years focusing on building out the party and teaching precinct chairs on how to do as such. I don't think my esteemed colleague is right. The party's done an excellent job of helping this county become both Republican as it is and getting it where it is. So my position is not where we have been or what has been done up to this point. My focus is going to be on where we need to go and where we have to go because of the changes that have happened, particularly in the last 15 years. We are correct in stating the fact that there are a number of Republican women's groups. All but one meet at 12:30 or noon. If you're a working woman, which now most women are, that becomes problematic because when you come home, you miss the meeting. Lady Bell's do an excellent job of alternating month to month, but they're not available usually. You know what I mean. That's a night meeting. The other problem we run into, now that's the people who are working, that's husband and wives that don't have access to that. Pachyderms are not available anywhere in Montgomery County. They used to be, but again, we're not talking about the past, we're talking about the future. Now that's if you're working older couples. Younger people, 40-year-olds, it is true we have somewhat of a social media presence, but there's a great amount of work to do. And then I do mean a tremendous amount of work. The fact of the matter is if you're under 40, You don't look at your emails, which is the way the party usually communicates, and you don't use the phone, which we do have an excellent phone bank. People under 40 tend not to use it. They take text messaging. The party doesn't use that as a mechanism. And there's other things that we don't use that people under 40 tend to use. We're starting to lose a younger generation, and we're not getting access to the people who just moved here. And we all know we're the fastest growing county in the nation, and we need to change the way we access people.
Thank you very much. Okay, as I said, my questions come from you, the most important people here, the voters. And the first will be from John Works.
So it's 1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute to ask your question. We do have questions instead of speeches. John, you're good at that.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for running. Precinct chair issues. Over the last year, several of us have been tracking the vacancies of precinct chairs in Montgomery County. I'm precinct chair 69. What we found were a number of chairs were not listed, and in that and other situations, candidates were automatically placed in some of those chairs, all without a vote by the county executive committee. This is required by the Montgomery County Republican County bylaws, Article 3, members, Section 4, and also provided for in Title 10 of the Texas Election Code, Political Parties, Subtitle B, Chapter 171, Subchapter B. In Monday's vacancy committee agenda, January 22nd, which referenced January 5th, 2018 newsletter and Dr. Wilkerson's January 8th email, there were only 11 precincts listed as vacant. Yet when I cross-referenced the Secretary of State's website, it said that there are, in fact, 9 more, which are not listed on the vacancy agenda, which will total 20 void seats come March 6th.
Wrap up your question.
Sure. Why is there such an inconsistency in all of this, not to mention an out-of-date website, and who's responsible for this, and what can be done to fix it?
Dr. Wilkerson, you get to go first.
Well, thank you, John. I've heard that before, and you seem to be a broken record when it comes to that sort of thing. The vacancy committee has worked very diligently to replace those that are vacant, and right now, we have the fewest vacancies in our executive committee that we've ever had. And I'm proud of what we've been able to accomplish. I'm sorry that Mr. Worth doesn't agree with what I think is the accurate count, but that's his right, and I'm happy for him to speak to that if he wants to.
Mr. Boggs, you have something to comment on that?
I will. That's inter-house play in terms of I can neither speak to whether the vacancies are there or not. Obviously, Mr. Wirtz feels like they are. He says that they've done the best, A, to fill it, and B, have worked hard. I do know this. I will take input from the precinct chairs. If they come to me and say, you've missed something, there's something here you're missing, I will sit down with them. I don't see them as a broken record. I really don't. I don't see any precinct chair as a broken record. From my viewpoint, if they come to me and say, look, I make mistakes all the time. I'm going to admit that. I have a wife to remind me of that every day. But my point is that I've learned from that. My wife, which will soon be with me, we have another location, she's coming, and she'll be with me tonight. But my point is, I listen to her. I rely on her input. And I rely on the input of the precinct chairs to say, look, you've missed something. And if I have, I'm going to deal with it. The one thing I won't do, though, is point out to the precinct chairs that they're a broken record or that are probably wrong.
Okay. Next question will come from Betty, is it Bird?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you've both partially answered my question, but I've got another part to it. I'm asking, what have you done to bring Montgomery County from a strong Democratic stronghold to a strong, well-respected Republican stronghold, and at the same time, keep the party financially strong?
Mr. Boggs, you go first this time.
That question is obviously geared to point out his better attributes and the fact that he is the one who's done what you're actually asking about. And I appreciate the fact you're trying to help him with that question.
No, it continues.
I agree, which is what I'm actually going to address. In terms of what Dr. Wilkerson is correct. Nobody has won as a Democrat since 1990-something. The problem is Democrats no longer win as Democrats. They win as running as Republicans. That's an issue. There was election at the Woodlands Township. I talked to a woman that actually worked the day that she ran. She said the parking lot was filled with Democrats telling other people that this woman was a Democrat and they should vote for her as a Democrat. She called the party headquarters, asked they come down and help her to work it so the people knew who the other candidate was. Nobody came. But she didn't make the call to alert them that the Democrats were down there picketing for a Democratic candidate and saying she was a Democrat. It was a nonpartisan race. The problem was the Democrats didn't see it as nonpartisan. I personally, like I said, I worked with another woman in Harris, and I do come from Harris for a while. I actually started here, went down because my wife's an artist. I admit that. However, within 2 months, me and another lady recruited over 150 precinct chairs within 2 months. Harris County claimed that was the fastest growth in precinct recruitment they'd ever seen. I talked to the gentleman who's directly responsible for that. I went to 7 different locations to explain why people want to work for it. I have helped build out the party in many, many ways. In terms of presence, I'm going to make doggone sure that we have a presence both in social media, both in going and speaking to town forums and why people want to be involved in the party. And I want to have events at night so people like you guys can actually attend and get to know us in the party. We don't currently have a lot of those.
Okay, did that answer my financially strong question too?
Oh, I will fundraise. That's another issue. One of the jobs of the party chair, obviously, is to keep us financially strong. One of the jobs I have to do, and they did that in Harris County when the new chairman took over after 15 or 20 years, he did an audit. He did a public exposure, put the numbers on the wall, let the precincts chair see how every dime was spent, and then said, here's how I'm going to progress in the future. I promise I'm going to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Boggs. Dr. Wilkerson?
Well, that's interesting. I appreciate his comments in a way. It's really a important thing for someone to know a lot about our county. And I worked hard throughout the years to establish relationships with every kind of person in this county, with all kinds of organizations. And I'm sorry to say, my opponent has only lived here in the county 3 months. So I don't think he's going to be able to keep up those relationships that we've worked so hard through the years to build. We have a budget of over $80,000, and we raise that budget every year. And it's an important part of our party. And if we don't have the money, we can't keep the headquarters open, which is a very important source of people coming to our headquarters. So I think my relationships with people in this county speak for themselves.
Thank you.
Boggs, you need a rebuttal?
Obviously.
You hand me that,
Thank you,
please?
sir. Two issues as to my progress here. 2 years ago, I ran for SRIC. One of the gentlemen I was running against, there was actually 2 of us from this area. The other gentleman actually was born and raised here. We both were accepted, sent to the state level, and I don't know if you know that, but there are 3 counties that actually show up for that vote, with Montgomery County being the overwhelming majority. First vote, the first line of vote, I actually beat the boy that was local. He didn't win. I went up against the incumbent and only lost by 20 votes. Now, how did I manage to do that and not actually grow up here? I am extremely well known among those who actually run this county and those who vote. Not only that, basically, in order to become, and he hasn't mentioned that, in order to become a candidate, I had to get 16 signatures of acting precinct chairs, and I did it in 24 hours. I'm not unknown in this county. I've actually, now, he says he's addressed all of the organizations. How many Tea Party meetings has he attended? Those are actually Republican organizations. I'm going to bet he doesn't go there very often, but he says he's a don to all the Republican organizations and help build them up.
Thank you, Mr. Boggs. Next question will be from Terry Brown. One minute.
Thank you. Mr. Boggs, you said that you had quite a bit of success in Harris County, where they seem to have a whole lot more problem with the Republican Party coming to the front. Why wouldn't you run for the chairman in Harris County and continue your success there rather than Montgomery County, where we are very successful as a Republican Party?
Actually, you're insinuating that they're not successful as a Republican Party, which really actually isn't true.
Really?
Well, they're a city. You have to compare them to Chicago or even Dallas or even any major metropolitan area, which tends to be Democrat to begin with. But let's be a little more honest. The reason I ended up here was more of a God thing. I ended up because Harvey basically placed me here. That I had no control over. I told you I started out in Montgomery County. I went down for a few years. We addressed monetary issues. I've actually run 3 businesses. One of them was an art gallery that ran in Harris County for 7 years. Then I immediately moved back out this way because this is more Republican, and I enjoy being with Republicans. Now, as to why an outsider, as you would put it, might be successful. There are several things I've been through that you guys have not been through. Number 1, transition to a new party chair. The current chair actually replaced a man that had been in there over 15 years. There was a number of issues. I watched that transition and worked through it. I watched what they had to do to make that a successful transition. And I'm more than able and know what I'm getting into if I win as to what this transition is going to mean. Very few people in this room have ever been through that transition. 2, I know what it is to beat the Democrats at their own game. I told you I recruited over 150 precinct chairs within 2 months. And I recruited, usually at the average of 50 a month, trained precinct chairs on how to build out their precincts, how to block walking, how to do candidate vetting. I had a guy call me tonight on I can show you my phone record. He called me to ask me how he should vet a judge who came to him and wanted his endorsement. I said, I'm glad you asked that. I'm going to send you a vetting form that might help you. And he thanked me for my time. How do I know that kind of thing? I know how to beat the Democrats. You don't have that experience because you never had to do it. Oh, but you have recently.
We have had to beat them here.
Thank you, but they don't run as Democrats. When's the last time a Democrat ran as a Democrat in this county? This election, yes, but not in the past. He said it himself.
Thank you. Dr. Wilkerson, you have anything to add?
Not right now.
Okay.
Next question will come from Diana DeBolas. And I didn't tell her what to say. That does not work in our household.
I wondered how hard it is to stay fair and equal when you're in the Republican Party and you have a lot of different candidates running for things. Is that a difficult problem?
Who goes first?
Dr. Wilkerson, you go first on this one.
Well, thank you for that question. And my opponent talked about me not going to Tea Party meetings. The Section 2, Article 2 of our bylaws says the Montgomery County Republican Party shall not endorse or oppose any candidate on the Republican primary, runoff, or special election ballot, nor shall the committee endorse or oppose any candidate or candidates, or endorse or oppose any issue or issues appearing on any nonpartisan ballot. Now, it is true that the Tea Party people endorse candidates, and if I show up at one of the meetings, it may look like maybe I'm helping them endorse a candidate. And I've worked very hard to build this reputation up in our county. All of our candidates know full well that we're not going to be in a position of endorsing or doing anything to oppose those candidates. And I will certainly say that this is the best rule that we ever put in place.
Thank you. Mr. Boggs?
That really didn't answer the question, so let me address both what he said and the actual question that was addressed. Number 1, the Tea Parties don't endorse. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to be here to defend Tea Parties, which is what I'm being positioned to do. However, let me state this. Republican women's groups do just as much having candidates there as the Tea Party. In fact, I view both of them as doing the same function. When I talk about uniting the parties, because I actually see both groups as having a valid function. Republican women's groups block walk. They hang up signs. They bring in candidates. They talk to the candidates. In fact, if you're a candidate, you're a dang fool if you don't attend the Republican women's group. And yet Dr. Wilkerson doesn't have a problem attending those, only the ones with the word Tea Party on it. They both do the same function. So, now I've addressed that. Now, as far as being nonpartisan, The fact of the matter is, one advantage I have from being the outside is I have no horse in the thing. I'm going to evaluate all of you based off of your qualification. I didn't grow up here 40 years and have an automatic bias towards somebody's family or somebody that's a relative that's run for office or something like that, which can happen in a smaller town where a lot of you have grown up here and you know everybody. I look at you and I say, I like what your qualifications are. I like who you are. And like the gentleman that called me earlier tonight, I'm going to sit down and say, what's your background? Why are you running? Why should you be a part of this? And I told the newspaper at the Conroe that what the questions you're asking me are the same kind of questions I'd ask any candidate. And I'm going to do it in a non-partial format because I have no horse in the race. My family hasn't been here for 50 years, and I'm not backing a particular family name. So I have that advantage that a lot of people don't have. Something else, I've dealt with candidates for years and years. That's one of the things I specialized in. The point is that my main thing is how you're going to build out the base. And I really don't care how you dress, who you are, what you are. I want to know what you're going to do to build up the party, and I'm going to treat everybody that way, blue collar, white collar, otherwise. If you're going to work for this party, you're going to get my backing.
Thank you.
Next question will be from Calvin Russell.
How you doing? Thank you guys for being here. You know, I've heard Republican several times. I've not heard the word conservative from either one of you guys once. I saw it on Dr. Wally's sign outside, and I'd like to ask a question because you may recall, Dr. Wally, the ginger, I came to your office and we asked you about some things that we were really frustrated about Republicans that were acting like Democrats and actually going against the Republican Conservative Party. One of them was Joe Strauss. And there was a big move then to get him out of office. I know he's going to resign now or has, but whenever we asked that question, you were totally behind Joe Strauss. And I'm just wondering, where would you draw the line? I think I asked that question in there, but where would you draw the line on a person that claims to be a Republican and is not conservative and in fact works against our party?
Well, thank you, Calvin. That's your opinion, and there are other opinions. Mr. Strauss is an office holder, and as I indicated to you earlier, it will not be within the bylaws for me to endorse or oppose Mr. Strauss. I didn't agree with everything he did, but I don't think it's right for the county chairman to get involved in races that create a lot of turmoil and dissension. And then somebody has to put the pieces back together, and that falls on the county chairman to have to do that. I believe I've been at this business long enough to know what is best. And what is best is what we have in our bylaws. I appreciate your opinion, and that's fine. Mr. Strauss is no longer an issue, and I don't think we need to really talk about it.
Can I respond to that, or is that?
Pardon?
Can I respond to that at all?
No, one question.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they gave me that job. You can't do my job. I get to respond to that. I actually agree with him. As the county chairman, we have no business endorsing candidates, especially in primaries. That's not the county chair's job. It shouldn't be. And we've said that often. When we're in a primary, I'm not going to endorse candidates. I'm not supposed to. Now, once we have the candidate picked after the primary, yeah, we throw the full weight and force of the whole Republican Party behind that person. Somebody asked me, what if I disagreed with the candidate? If the voters vote for them, my job is to make sure we don't get a Democrat in there. Now, if the candidate who ran happens to be a Democrat, I'm not going to put a worse Democrat in there. Give me a break here. I'm going to back the guy that we brought in. I'm going to back the will of the voters. But on the other hand, there's a second part to this. Mr. Strauss has, over the years, gone against the party, what we call the I suddenly can't.
Platform?
Thank you, the party platform. In fact, the Calendars Committee has had a habit of burying certain bills that have come up. And I don't know if many of you know this. What happens is there's a committee where they decide what actually gets brought up to a vote. It's called the Calendars Committee. And where the bill is placed in there determines if it ever goes to a vote. And when it gets tight, certain bills that are very conservative tend to be at the bottom. And Mr. Strauss is famous for basically making sure that certain conservative bills are buried. So I understand his question. Mr. Strauss has proven himself to be a moderate, maybe a liberal, because like I said, you don't run as anything but a Republican in this county. And as Rick Perry and others approved, you suddenly become Republican when it's time to run for election. Oh, I got 30 seconds. Sorry. For those of you who don't know, originally, Rick Perry was originally head of the Department of Agriculture as a Democrat. He, along with a lot of people, flipped parties at the last minute. I suspect Mr. Strauss was the same way. That's what I was trying to bring up. I look, when he flipped that, I go, oh, I'm done. But the point of it is, I will not during a primary, now here's what I will do. Why not set up a series of videos like one of the Tea Parties does with the candidates stating what their platform is, what they believe, and how they fit it, and put it on YouTube. You decide whether they're fit to run. I can't.
Thank you. Ginger Russell.
Okay, thank y'all for coming tonight. Dr. Wally is a precinct chair for 4 years, going on my 3rd term. I have just felt marginalized by the office here in Montgomery County. I reached out to you months ago to be an area chair, and you told me to come in and talk to you. I was under the understanding, I guess you wanted to find out where I was as a Republican before you would accept that. And then when things calmed down after Harvey, I reached out, and you said the position had been filled, but you never made me aware of that. The other thing that I found disturbing was that I am a Republican precinct chair in Magnolia, and they started the Magnolia Republican Women's Group, and I was never even notified. And so that being said, what can you do to bring the party together? I'm fiscally conservative, I'm socially conservative, I want to adhere to the Republican platform, so I don't see why I'm being marginalized, and how can you bring the party together instead of dividing us?
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, because I don't intend to ever do that, and I didn't do it to you. You came to me and demanded that I appoint you to a vice area chair that had been filled years ago by a lady that's held that office for a long time. She had no reason to give it up. And I was as nice to you as I could to say, I cannot appoint you because there's not a vacancy. Now, if that's marginalizing you, I'm sorry you feel that way. My office is open anytime, any day to talk to you about anything. And I don't think it's a fair thing for you to say that I personally tried to marginalize you.
Mr. Boggs, you care to comment?
I'm going to start the healing now. Let me say something. I'm not running because of dissatisfaction with Dr. Wilkerson. He's a very fine gentleman, and I'm sensing a lot of frustration. And in that sense, I feel for him because he's worked really hard, and he's not lying about that. He didn't take lunch, he takes it in the office. And I'll say that. He's worked very, very hard. Anybody in office or anybody who's been around a long time will find people frustrated with him, including me. Some of you barely know me, and you're already frustrated with me now. So getting to know people, there'll always be things will butt heads. However, answering the question more directly as far as bringing people together, my standard will always be, how do you fit the party platform? I've already stated that the Republican Women's Group and the Tea Parties basically do the same job. They didn't used to, by the way. In the early days of the Tea Party, they were there to be the anti-Republican group. They said that. I'm here to combat, we're going to fit. But let's be honest here, that ended probably 5 years ago. Most Tea Parties, basically, they vet Republican candidates, vote Republican, block walk for Republican, and they're pretty much Republican. They're not what they started out to be. And in that sense, if you look at the platform and building it out and working for them, both groups have the same agenda, seeing Republicans win. I'll be shocked if I ever see a Tea Party group vote for a Democrat. The point of it is, with that being said, I want to see both groups work together to bring the platform and push the platform and walk their buns off to get our people winning, because Democrats, how many Democrats are they vetting this time and running against us? First time in years we had that many Democrats running against us. Why? They smell blood in the water, and they see Montgomery County as vulnerable. That's the only reason they're trying. If we are that safe after this long a tenure with Dr. Wilkerson, why are the Democrats suddenly putting that many candidates out the thing? They should say, we never win there. But no, they've got more candidates than ever. They smell blood, and they know we're weak. But it's not that he's done a bad job. The times have changed. We're doubling our population. I blocked walking a man from Chicago who was in a precinct. I said, is he Dem or Republican? I don't know.
Thank you. Next question will be from Maureen Ball. Maureen, if you can give me just a second. If there's somebody who did not sign up to ask questions, you can still go out and fill out a slip, and they'll bring it up here and put it in the bucket, so you're not going to be left out. Maureen.
Okay. Well, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking time out to be here tonight. I'm glad you're talking about what it means to be a Republican, because that's why we're here. We want to be Republicans, and I think we can identify ourselves as that based upon our platform. My question relates to the platform because that's voted on at the state convention. We send delegates to the state convention to vote on platform issues. They can either reduce, change, whatever. That platform's important. It can change every time there's a state convention. So who we send up there is important. The state rules allow precinct caucuses at the senatorial convention to select state delegates. Many counties do that, but Montgomery County does not. So my question to you are, what are the pros and cons of precinct caucuses at the senatorial convention to nominate state delegates?
Mr. Boggs, you get to start.
That's bad because he sets the rules and why we don't do it in Montgomery. And I can't speak to why we don't do it here.
Well, I'm just talking about what are the pros and cons of, in general, the
Let me put
policy
it
of
this
that?
way. In Harris County, what she's vetting is actually done that way. And I'm presuming he sets a rule because I know for a fact in Harris, the reason I know this is I have been to the state several times, and as a precinct chair, last meeting, there was only one precinct that beat me in terms of the amount of people that went to state. When we filled the chairs, I had 2 rows of people out of my precinct there. And I sat down in the meeting. What happened is after we had the major meeting, we went in the back room. I sat down with all the people that went, and I said, here's my rules. We have too many people. Not all of you are going to be able to be delegates. If you have a wife here, one of you is going to be the alternate. You're not sending both of them. To top that off, Dan Huberty Huberty's secretary happened to be in my precinct, and I said, she's got to go. I'm not going to have Dan without his secretary at a state convention. Gave away 1 slot. And then we sat down and divvied up the slots based on a fair system that married couples couldn't send both. And we got everyone I appointed got to go as a chair. That's how they do it in Harris. For some reason, it's not done here. The pros were that I can get my precinct involved, and if I put them down on paper as a delegate, I could guarantee they were going. If they went as an alternate, so many people don't go, there's a good chance they're going to be seated anyway. But the fact was I could go to my people, and I did. That's how I had so many seats filled, 2 rows of people that wanted to go. I talked it up, so let's go to state. You can get involved in the party. You can have a direct vote in what the platform says. And they got excited, and I filled the rows, and 1 precinct beat me. So the point is that my excitement is sending my precinct people, knowing they're going, and that I'm going. Because from my understanding, sometimes the precinct chair isn't allowed to go either. I've been told before, I believe, there have been occasions where the precinct chair may not go themselves to state, even though they are the precinct chair, at least in Montgomery County. That doesn't happen. Now, I'm a part of this system. Let me give you an understanding. I will work, if I don't win, I'll run by whatever rules he sets. Like I said, he's a good man. I'll follow those rules, but this is what I call Wallyism. It happens here, but not everywhere in the state.
Thank you. Dr. Wilkerson?
Well, I'm sorry to say you're dead wrong.
Okay.
That rule is passed by the delegates of the convention. I have no say about whether that's done the way they do it in Harris County or we do it here in Montgomery County. This gentleman here was chairman of the Rules Committee at the last senatorial district convention. He brought that up. The convention defeated it. Now, if you want to overcome what the delegates vote to do, I guess that's one thing. But in Montgomery County, we don't do it that way. And it wasn't me that decided that. It was the delegates at the convention. So you need to get your fact right.
Could I address, I just wanted the pros and cons of the system.
You asked the question. I'm afraid I can't let it go on. Sorry, good question. Last rebuttal from Mr. Boggs.
And we'd already agreed, I'm not going to spend a lot of time arguing, that's not my goal, but let's get it a little bit different. Like I said, in Harris, it does run different. It isn't that I'm ignorant, it's just not done everywhere. There's a definite difference in the way he implied. Tonight you've heard several things. Number 1, I don't know my facts. 1 precinct chair is a broken record, and another person, well, that's her opinion. That is a problem. I've heard 3 times tonight essentially that people who stated something got their facts wrong. You know, you've heard it down the line. I'm not going to play that way. The fact is the matter is that I know Harris doesn't do it that way. When my people sit down, we listed them, those are the people that went. It's not that I'm wrong, it's just not done that way other places. Now, how that had to be a rule here, maybe it is a state rule. For some reason, Harris County got a waiver. If they can get it, I can get it. But I know if they can do it, we can do it here. That's something else. I have relationships, and so does he, but I have solid relationships with other chairs in other counties. I'm going to use those relationships to sit down and improve this area. Not that we're doing poorly here, he's done a good job, but I will use my relationships other places to do even better.
Thank you. Next question will be from Reagan Reed.
Good evening, I'm Reagan Reed, Chairman for Precinct 50. Among our party leadership, there seems to be a decided bias against Tea Party grassroots conservatives. It's not about what groups endorse or not, because I remember, Mr. Wilkerson, you were at the establishment Fake Tea Parties Forum 2 years ago, and they definitely endorse. The committees are stacked with establishment people. They're not run by grassroots people. The party officers, none of those are grassroots people. They're all the inner clique of establishment people. It is that way all across the party. The resolutions we bring, whether it be the one that I brought on the homestead exemption or the toll road one, resolutions that are in line with our conservative platform are blocked or stifled. You tried to shut down the meeting before I made a motion to overturn your ruling, and then on the homestead one, you attacked me and all the ones who voted for it, questioning whether we were even Republicans. And so with the grassroots being marginalized and the party factions like this, how do you unite and build the party by treating grassroots conservatives this way?
Thank you. Doctor, would you like to
Well, I'm
respond
sorry to
first?
say, I believe he's living in a fantasy world. That doesn't happen in our party, and Mr. Gabos is certainly an example of that. He was a chairman at the last convention for the Rules Committee. He brought that rule to the floor, and there was a vote, and the delegates voted it down. That's not using pressure or high tactics or whatever you want to call them. That's normal for the people to vote what they feel like is best for the party. Now, maybe I'll feel different about it this time. I don't know.
Yeah, we sure did.
But I'm sorry.
Continue. No, somebody
I'm
else
sorry.
said that, not me.
I believe
I don't get to speak.
that we have a fair representation at our convention, and I'm sorry that Mr. Reed feels like he's left out. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe he needs to kind of check his activities and actions that cause some of that resentment, and I'm sorry about that. And I'll do everything I can to put him in a position that he will be able to affect a decision. I have been a fair county chairman, as fair as anybody in this state. And I am known over the state by county chairs. And they look to Montgomery County as a beacon and as a leader. And there's a reason for that, because we are an effective organization that delivers votes in our county for Republicans, and that's why there are no Democrats serving in our county now, and they're not going to do it anytime in the near future, regardless of how many Democrats they run.
Mr. Boggs, your comment?
I totally agree. Openly, there will be no open Democrats serving in our elections. That's interesting. Anyway, I can't address that because, again, but I will say this. He's right. I mean, he is respected across the state. When you serve for a half a century in the same position, it's easy to gain a reputation because most of you grew up with him, and I don't doubt that. And he's been the person you've trusted, and you've had no reason not to. Like I said, I'm not looking at the past. I'm looking at the future. I don't doubt the fact that you guys have done a good job and that we're open. We have a good Republican base. However, Montgomery County is well, at least the part up the street is the fastest growing county in the U.S. As I pointed out, I ran into a gentleman from Chicago and 2 other people within 1 block range that are all new within the last year. We need to find a way to reach out to those people as soon as they arrive here. We don't have the mechanisms there yet. By the way, those high school groups that keep being brought up at most speeches, how many of your children changed to Democrats when they got to college? I'm glad we have all those high school groups. We need to start reaching out to them when they come back from college. We're not effective there. And so I see the success of the party. Like I said, he has a success record going back half a century. I don't doubt that. But I'm looking toward the future. And one thing I know is that we have to make a drastic change, or those people coming back, including my own son, who's now studying international law, will drift toward the Bernie Sanders of the world, and we're going to lose them. And that is his base, by the way. The new women coming here, most of those women are not going to go to Republican Women's Group, which he brings up. He's right, there's 7 of them. They're wonderful groups. My wife goes to most of them. My wife's retired. Most of you work. They can't go to those. We have no pachyderms. We have no activities at night past 6:30. You know why the Tea Parties exist? They're the only meetings that run after 7 p.m. at night. You want activity in the party, you've got to go to the Tea Party. There's nothing else.
Thank you. Next question will be from Mr. Yalik.
My name is Eric Yalik, and if you go back to the 1960s book by Barry Goldwater, Conscience of a Conservative, which I know Dr. Wilkerson has read, in that book he makes it very clear that a conservative is someone who believes in reduced government spending. And 4 years later he made it even clearer that a Republican is someone who is a conservative under the same definition. Well, I've now been a Republican since I was 15 years old in 1976, and I now see that we control all of the federal government, we control the state government, and we even control the Montgomery County Commissioner's Court, and yet there's no reductions in government spending, and nor there have ever been any reductions in government spending. My question is, what is it that you can do as the Republican Party chairman to make sure that Republican candidates follow that commitment of the party?
Thank you. Mr. Boggs?
That goes back to what I started to say earlier and ran out of time.
Can everybody hear him in the back?
I'm trying to,
Okay.
I'm a teacher. I can actually project clear the back of a very large room.
I'm just making sure.
Earlier I was speaking too loudly and realized that, and I was projecting too much. And I said, oh Lord, they're going to come off as, and now I withdrew, so I'll be a little softer, and I went the other way. Sorry about that. But I do speak, I don't even need them. I'm too good at that. The point is, I started to bring that up earlier. He's right, we can't endorse candidates, not in a primary, we shouldn't. That's not the job. What we can do is what the Tea Parties do very, very well. We can make candidate videos, we can have actually a set of questionnaires asking them their experience, I brought that up earlier. We can actually ask them how they compare to the party platform in certain areas, such as government spending, toll roads, other areas like that that people are, I know toll roads are passionate. I've been to at least 3 forums where the room had 3 times as many people, and the only question was, do we get a toll road? We can ask those kinds of questions before they run inside the primary. Put them on a YouTube channel by category. Make it accessible using Twitter, Facebook, which YouTube easily posts to Facebook, and let people know that they can go and view these videos, get an outlook as to how they fit their perspective of conservatism. I agree with them. I hate government spending. It's done nationally, and yet it's in the platform as something that should be happening. They're lying. They're going in and voting as Democrats, and they're spending and running as conservatives in their primaries. What they used to say, run toward the middle and then shift after you get elected, and everybody's angry that our president didn't do that. They thought, how dare he actually not shift after the election? They're angry at him. I think candidates need to be asked those pertinent questions. I think the party needs to vet them, not endorse them. Let people know how they think, post it, let it go public, and let the public decide how to vote. But I'll never make a public statement endorsing a candidate. I won't. But I'm going to let the people know where they stand. Williams Township, you should have known she was pro-Planned Parenthood before that election happened. It's an easy question.
Thank you. Dr. Wilkerson?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the lady down in the Woodlands.
Thank you.
Somebody said earlier, I believe it was you, that they called me at the headquarters. I've never even met the lady. She's never come to the headquarters. She never called me. I wouldn't know her if I saw her.
I wouldn't either, so.
And we do not become involved in nonpartisan races. That's the rule. And I go by the rules. And that's going to be the way it is as long as I'm county chairman. And I think it's a fantasy world to think that we're going to tell the commissioners what to do. Sure, you talk to them, and you can lobby them, and you can ask them to do things, but in the ultimate end, it's their idea, and it's their vote, and they're going to do what they think is in the best interest of the county. Now, it may not be what you agree with, but if the majority of the Commissioners Court agrees, then I would say it would be certainly what the county wanted.
Thank you. Next question will be from Gail Schur.
Well, I have a concern that I'm not sure the county can handle, but certainly the people here should know. A lot of the spending is unfunded mandates by our federal government.
Yeah, that is a problem.
And you know, when we're $1 billion in debt over what we thought we'd spend for Medicaid, that's hospitals, and that's illegals, and that's births.
Yeah.
And the other thing is education and property tax. I mean, we're educating people freely that are not citizens. So one of the big things is unfunded mandates, and states are having to bear that burden.
Yeah.
And until we do something about that, states do, I'm not sure what they can do, but that, you know, that is a concern for all states, and especially Texas, which has a flood of illegals. The other thing is, that wasn't a question, but I know.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
I wanted to.
I'm trying to think, where is this going?
But I
Do you have
did.
anything to do with that? I don't.
But when I went to the Republican Ladies Club, I did notice that the lady, young girl that was with the person that was a Democrat running for the, you know, the position, gave me her card, and it had a Washington D.C. number. So that means
Get to the question, please.
George Soros, and that means they're using a very sophisticated system to target their potential voters. Now, I wonder if who would be in the position in our county or the state, who would be able to kind of do the same thing for new people coming in, so you could target them by, there's a name for the program that they use.
There's several that can be used.
But who's responsible for that? Is that the
Dr.
county or
Wilkerson,
the
would you like to
state?
respond?
I'm not sure what the question is. Could you repeat it?
There's a new targeting software that they use to target potential Democratic voters. It's a very sophisticated
Are you talking
program.
about the Advantage app?
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, it just so happens that on
Thank you,
February the 5th, at 7 o'clock in the evening, at the headquarters, there will be a person from the state party to come talk about Advantage app.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
you're welcome to come.
Oh, I would love to come. Well, thank you.
Good.
That was my, thank you.
Mr. Boggs, you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. I'm very proud of the fact that after training 9 precinct chairs on using the Advantage app, that they made a call and requested that the state come down. I'm also excited to hear that at the last meeting, one of the precinct chairs announced to the group that the Advantage app was available and they could be trained in it. It did not come from my esteemed colleague. It actually came from a precinct chair to make that announcement. I'm not sure if he knew it. He probably did, but it was announced there. I've been using the Advantage app for 5 years, ever since it first came out. I first became enamored with it when Brandon Creighton ran, and basically I was taken to his office, and his staff centrally pointed out that his app, the app he was using, had 150 points of contact. Now what that means is they know possibly what you buy, what magazines you purchase, if you're pro-gun and things like that. And I was asked to basically pilot a program. I asked for 5 iPads. I took a group out and block walk using that software and training the people that I was working with to help Brandon Creighton get elected, at least in my neck of the woods. So yes, I have also helped local Montgomery County people get elected, even though I wasn't here. That was 5 years ago. Since that time, I've trained hundreds of precinct chairs on how to use that app. When I entered Montgomery County, immediately And I'm slated to help over 14 people sit down one-on-one. I just did that with one of the people here, Maureen Ball. I trained her on that. Met with her at the Woodlands Mall, sat down with her and showed her how to use it. That's why the phone call was made to the state requesting the training. And that's literally what's going on. Now, I'm not criticizing him. I'm not implying anything other than the fact was there may be a direct connection between my entering and starting to train precinct chairs and the phone call made to Austin requesting training in that area. I can only help so many. There's quite a few, over 90 precinct chairs. I personally trained close to 10 since I've entered the county, and I haven't been here that long and have trained close to a few hundred in other places. Yes, I'm very familiar with that.
Pat Truesdale.
My name is Pat Truesdale. I'm the current president of the Woodlands Republican Women. I didn't come here this evening expecting to be offended, but Mr. Boggs, you have really offended me. Number one, the TFRW, our state organization, does not allow our president or our vice presidents to endorse any Republican candidates before the primary. I have not, and I will not. I don't know how many other of the presidents you've talked to who told you that they did, because you say you vet before you endorse. And I feel like you've kind of unendorsed me as president of the Republican Women by your comments tonight, and you didn't talk to me. There are 5 other women who are presidents, and I suggest you talk to them before you quote us as endorsing candidates. I go to as many of the candidate events as I can. I try to go to both candidates, 3 candidates, however many. I try to be fair and impartial. And Mr. Gabolas is an associate member of our group. He's there for all of our debates. We are always fair and equal in our treatment of our candidates.
Thank you, Pat. Since it was addressed to Mr.
That was addressed to Mr. Boggs.
Actually, the first...
Have you vetted the other 5, and why didn't you vet me?
Actually, the first group my wife joined was her organization. She spoke well of her. That was the first thing we did when we entered the county, was actually join 2 Republican groups. Hers was the first. And my wife came back home and said she enjoyed meeting her. I have never said that Republican women's groups endorse primary candidates. Actually, I spoke highly of, I didn't say that. However, that may have been what you heard. And let me clarify something. What I said was that the thing that the Republican women's group does, and the Tea Party does, I said they hang signs, I said they block walk, they contribute money, they give a forum for these candidates to state their positions. I didn't say they endorsed. I've also said multiple times that I myself, if I become chair, would do just the same. I've also agreed with him that no chair should publicly endorse a candidate before they become the candidate. In their primary, they're not. And I've said that about myself several times and said I agree with him. I know I said that. However, having stated that, I also said that we need to do the same thing that's been happening all the way along the lines. Interview the candidates, get to know them, put a video online so people can get to know them, which I think the Republican women do quite well. By the way, as far as my relationship with Republican women, when I went to state as SRAC, the Republican women's groups are walking the aisle actually saying vote for Boggs up and down the aisle. And it was all of that particular women's group that knew me, and the president herself was shouting vote for Boggs. I'm highly backed by Republican women's group, and I hope to gain your trust the same way. And I have had that for a number of years. My wife has always ridden on the float for the Republican women's group for the last 6 or 7 years, and we've always backed them as a person, not as a candidate. And it goes back, if you want to call Kingwood, they'll tell you the same thing. Those women back me.
Dr. Wilkerson, you have a comment?
Well, he has a vivid imagination, no question about it.
Me? I've had good company out there.
I didn't interrupt you, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have heard that so many times.
Yeah, but he did speak about the Republican women, and no question about it. And they do not endorse candidates. And when they invite a candidate to come to speak, they have to invite his opponent. And those are the rules.
I know, that's how I got invited tonight.
No, this isn't a Republican Women's Club.
No, later.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry that those misunderstandings are there, and I just want to say to you that in my tenure as chairman, I've never been accused of being unfair or dishonest. I have tried to work with all parts of the party and bring everybody together. You know, there's a slogan from many one, e pluribus unum, and that's my guide, and it will continue to be my guide. I think I know the people in our party well enough to be able to bring them together, and I'm going to work hard at that. Now, my opponent, he talks all about what we need to do. He's not mentioned one time about the Hispanic vote in this county. The Hispanic vote is going to make up 30% of our county. Our party has been working diligently with the Hispanic people to bring them in the fold, to have them understand that the Republican Party is their friend. And I don't hear him talking about Hispanics at all. I don't think he understands what an important voting bloc they have become in our county. And I have, and our party has.
Okay, it's time for our closing statements. Doctor, would you like to lead off?
Okay, well, thank you all for inviting me.
2 minutes.
I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you. I hope that you've learned something tonight about our party, and I'm anxious to get out on the campaign trail and continue to meet the people and talk to them and remind them that our party is strong as it ever has been and will continue to be strong as long as I'm chairman. I'm known in this county by the chambers of commerce, by all the people that have imparted jobs. My opponent has only been here a short time, and that's fine, I understand that. But if you're going to be a chairman, you got to know these people, and they know me. They've known me for 50 years. So I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Boggs?
Never explained where I taught. I actually teach at Meyer Elementary School, 60% Hispanic population, the rest of it's black. I'm one of the few white people there. I totally know the need, trust me. I know those families are the greatest people I can ever work with, and like I said, I have a bilingual staff, 2 of them. They outnumber the staff on my team, so let's go there. I said earlier that people under 40 reach out using social media. Hispanics use social media. I said earlier that if you're a working person, that you don't have access to the party because a lot of the events, and don't get me wrong, I'm sorry somebody mistook me, the Republican women's groups play a vital function and have had for many, many years, as well as the pachyderms. I'm merely proposing that we expand out the type of activities we have, that we start some pachyderms and some other, by the way, I hear there is one coming on the way, but that we expand out the pachyderms and other things so there'll be activities past 6:30 at night if you're a working person, which happens to be a lot of Hispanics or they wouldn't be in this country. So if you do my 2 proposals, we will reach out to Hispanics. Am I going to target them? No, I'm going to treat them like everybody else. I'm going to reach out in general. No, I don't bring them up. You know why? Because I see them as equal with us, and when I reach out, I'm going to reach out to them as well as the others. As far as my ability to reach out, I would have never been voted SREC by majority of Montgomery County if I didn't have that ability. There's a reason why my wife and I joined the Republican women's groups as soon as we got here. We love them. We network. As soon as we got here, we reached out to everybody in every group in this county. That's why I'm getting endorsements from several different groups and a wide diversity of people. He has done a great job. I respect what he's done. You haven't heard me. I've been told I'm delusional and a dreamer, but I've never said anything like that about him. I've said nothing but kind words and have never implied about anything about him. But I will tell you this, we have to change where we're going. The county's changing, and he said that himself in a recent forum. We need to meet that challenge.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your questions. I'm afraid the candidates usually hang around for a while to answer other questions.